Welcome to Costly Conversations. I'm excited because we have the one and only Sergeant WarDog with us today. He is a USMC vet. Recently, we just celebrated Veterans Day, so we want to celebrate him as well. And with that, we uh, we got to talk about something that's kind of serious. We got to talk about um, modern warfare. What is it? As we're looking around and we're seeing it, like what has kind of transpired, what is going on, and how can we kind of digest what we're seeing, whether it be in Ukraine or in the Israel Gaza conflict. How can we digest what we're seeing? So, as we kind of get into it, just keep in mind that we're not trying to take sides. We're just trying to break down some of what we're seeing, and then we're also going to talk about Sergeant Wardog's background and why he originally decided to join the armed forces. Um, so, if you're interested in that, join me. My name is Aaron. You can find me everywhere with my firearms work at ARMEDATLAS, and this is Caustic Conversations. What's going on, brother?
Not much, boss. Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Hey, you know what? When you fell out of the chat, it screwed up your mic, so I think you're back on the other feed. So I'll give you a second to correct that so people can hear you in all your glory.
All right, all right. How about now? Should be
Oh, that
back
sounds
where it
great.
was. I changed it.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. I like it. So, like I was saying earlier, you are a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. The Devil Dogs, the guys who go in first, and you have a little bit of, or maybe too much experience overseas, especially post 9/11. I guess very briefly, we'll just touch on when you deployed and the amount of tours that you did. Could you just kind of tell us a little bit about you? You have for for those who don't know, you do a lot, right? Like you've got multiple radio shows, podcasts, outdoors TV stuff, and it's just kind of like an evolution of what you used to do, and in a sense, I would say it's probably therapeutic for you to be able to get out there and do a lot of the things
Oh yeah.
that you used to do, and getting in touch with nature and whatnot. But I've been talking forever. Can you tell us just a little bit about you? Then we'll talk about modern warfare.
Of course, bro. I'm a U.S. Marine Infantry Rifleman. 0311 is the code given. I served 3 tours in Iraq. I was there the very first day of the war in 2003. I returned in 2004 to fight in Fallujah just after the Blackwater guys were murdered. And then in 2005, I was sent back again for my third tour. So I turned 19, 20, and 21 in the war on the front lines, Marine Corps infantry, rifleman. Um, let's see. After the war, I went on to college, majored in international relations. I returned to my hometown of Orlando, Florida. Attended the University of Central Florida, and I really got into diplomacy and international relations for some reason. So that's where I ended up deciding that I wanted to spend most of my time as far as major goes and whatnot. But while I was going to UCF, I was also working for Lockheed Martin at their missile and fire control facility down in Orlando because I wanted to keep my security clearance active while I was, going to school and whatnot. So as it went through the war, went through college, went through private security, then started to have health problems from the war, man. Certain issues such as hearing loss. My back was shot. I now have screws in my back, that sort of thing. Um, so I went through working armed security for a while in different locations until my health got bad enough to where I had to be medically retired and finish out my time with the Corps. I now have a metal disc in my neck, I have metal rods in my hip, and I have screws in my back. So there are times I can't do everything that I'd like to do, but I try to make the most of it by getting. I did have a period before I started to go out to hunt and camp, as I do now, where for about 10 years, man, I sat stagnant. I was kind of stuck. Um, I'd done the war, done the Marines, done college, marriage, kids, and I really couldn't figure out what there was left for me or what my purpose was in the world anymore. So I did the suburban dad thing for about 10 years straight without having any type of extracurricular activities to keep me going or to keep me engaged. So luckily, back in 2018, about 5 years ago, I started to camp for the first time. Then I bought some land and I started to hunt wild hogs. Got my hunting license here in Florida and all. And I went from taking a GoPro with me out while I was camping to eventually starting a podcast and a web series to try to keep myself motivated. And then I'd show it to some of my Marine buddies and they would tell me, I should keep going and keep doing it. And they found it kind of entertaining. So everything I try to do now, I do from the perspective of trying to entertain war veterans like my buddies, like my fellow Marines. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell as far as where I am now. And um, yeah, that's about where I stand, bro.
Yeah, well, I definitely appreciate you just going through and breaking all that down and being vulnerable because the reality is there's a lot of guys who are, I hate to say it, just like you in the sense that, they get out, their whole personality, their whole life revolved around the structure and the duty and the anticipation of
Right.
doing war. And now they're kind of in regular society, and you've done, your podcast is incredible in the sense that you're able to sit down and break down, just in your regular discussions, you're able to break down the mental struggles and the psyche of some of the guys who came back, and you did a podcast episode specifically about even some of the violent tendencies that you might hold on to, if you spent a
Right.
lot of time kicking indoors and shooting people,
Right.
that might follow you back into civilian life, and you have to be cognizant and aware of that. Like you're dealing with some serious issues, and some that people might be scared of because it's like, well, are we speaking against military, brotherhood? But I don't think that's what you're doing at all, because you're just trying to be real and try to help people and facilitate that conversation. So I can appreciate your vulnerability in that, and providing just an avenue for that kind of thing. It's a beautiful thing. And going kind of going back into the issue of war, you did 3 tours. Did
Right.
you see combat? Did you lose anybody while you were over there? Were you one of the unfortunate people who saw friends die near and around you? Can you share that before we get into the other topics?
Yeah, yeah. It's been many years of healing, and also I have no problem owning up to the fact that yes, I was in combat. As I said, I was an infantry rifleman, so I was the guy who was kicking open the front door and coming in your house and speaking to you in Arabic and military phrases, telling you to, drop weapons or to move things out of your way. Yes, I did have buddies. I'm actually wearing a memorial dog tag for one of my buddies right now, this very moment. I did have buddies lost, killed. I did attend mass funerals. Again, that's not just individual funerals, but when you're in the war, you have to have mass funerals at a time for multiple individuals being
Wow.
killed. So yeah, I did attend mass funerals. I did a lot of violence. I did execute my job, which was to engage the Iraqi military or insurgent individuals that were engaging myself or my fellow Marines. So
So
yeah, goes without saying, I can own up to it.
yeah,
I did my job. I did what I had to do
right. And
to
I
protect my
think
Marines.
I think that's an important admission as we kind of go into the next part of the conversation, which is talking about uh, what this war that's currently happening on the multiple fronts. We look at Russia and Ukraine. We look at what's happening in the Israel-Gaza situation. People are extremely sensitive about that right now, and I understand. And really quick before we proceed, I'm sorry, guys. I'm just getting over some sort of flu. It's been going around in my family. That's why we didn't do a show on Sunday. And so if I sound a little stuffy or if I like sneeze or cough, I apologize. Like I'm not trying to cough in your ear. But we appreciate those of you who are joining us live, and of course we appreciate those who will listen after and just honor the memory of Sergeant WarDog's friends and comrades, but also to talk about the unfortunate situations that will occur now or that have occurred in the last few weeks and months and years, especially going back to the Ukraine conflict. Um, so that said, let's put a pin in the Sergeant Wardog story, but kind of taking the context of what you're talking about. You've had to kind of do some of the dirty work of the U.S. government, of the military, of the war effort, and now let's go over to, let's say, Ukraine versus Russia. Obviously, you're not there, so you can't tell me everything about it, right? But I want your perspective as somebody who's had to do war, right? So let's talk about it. I mean, there was a time where people were like, "Oh, they're not going to invade; they're just trying to scare people," and then they did. As somebody who's had to kind of be in that in the role of a warfighter, what are some of the, I guess, what are some of the things that you've had to look at when it comes to, okay, we're boots on the ground right now. We're
Mhm.
trying to figure out, whatever the objective is. What are some of the objectives that you guys had when you went to the ground, and where do you feel like is there any parallel to what happened in Ukraine and Russia?
The only parallel I can think of is the sense of the main objective of any warfare,
Mm-hmm.
which is to reach your enemy's capital or his cities, right, and to dominate the military, the opponent's military on all fronts.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking to gain. It's just like the older days, the olden times. You're looking to gain territory, capture territory. So that's the only parallel I'll try to draw any lines to.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, for
Sorry, you broken up. I think you froze up. So
I,
we'll give you a second. Yep, we're still freezing up just a little bit. So we'll just give you a second to unfreeze, and then we'll proceed. Man, people, I think we lost them. So what we'll do is I'll disconnect him from the feed. We'll wait for him to come back in. And guys, for those of you who are listening, thank you so much for the support and making sure that what we do is possible. We ask that as you're um, supporting us, consider supporting us in the link that we have for our locals page. It's like a Patreon. So as you're thinking, oh man, I enjoy the show, or I would love to have input on how, new guest, the locals members have kind of first dibs, first say on these things. And it looks like we've reconnected with Sergeant Wardog. So let's go ahead and bring him back on and allow him to share. Hey, brother, looks like you're back. Are we back? 1 second. Hey, are we connected? No, doesn't look like we're connected. I will have to disconnect him again. Let's see if we can't get this thing figured out. So, normally it's a little bit easier to do the show, but obviously internet connections are an issue. That's right. DJ Play Nice, thank you so much for placing the link in that says if you want to join the Casa crew, do it here at armedatlas.locals.com. All right. Hey, brother, we got you back.
all right. Sorry about that, man.
Yeah, your mic is switched back over. So let's go ahead and get that fixed, and then we'll proceed. Yeah.
Sorry about that, bro. All
Oh, that's
right.
perfect. So you would say the only
That's the
parallels
only
is when you have to basically do conquest, which is go in there, grab land, make it to the capital, take over, engage other military forces.
right. right.
Okay, fair enough. Now, with that, I know you said that those are the only real parallels, and I wonder if you're saying that because, um, in a sense, you guys were fighting like a different style of warfare, and
Um, yes, obviously with the terrain, I was in a more of a desert, Middle Eastern environment, obviously. Which, yes, you can say they're facing that more in the Hamas and Israel situation and terrain there. But what you have going on as far as the external dynamics is why I won't draw any other parallels. The
mhm.
fact that we already know you have the history and the religion and hundreds of years of conflict, so that's why I won't draw any parallels with either the Israel and Gaza conflict nor with what's going on with Russia and Ukraine, because they're actually fighting in the cold, in the freezing and snowing conditions. And yes, there are similarities as far as they're going into cities, smaller villages, that sort of things. You are still using, um, you know, uh, CQB SWAT type of tactics on the urban environments, but I have to take my hat off to them when it comes to the fact that they are fighting in sheer and brutal cold, bro. And I
Mhm.
live in Florida now, so I'm from Florida, so I'm a Florida boy. Comes
Did
to
it ever
fighting,
get cold in what do they call it, the theaters that you served in?
yes, yes. The Middle East is always cold once the sun goes down.
Mhm.
All right,
Yeah,
you
that's
usually
what I figured. But obviously, as you are in Eastern Europe, between Ukraine, which is literally translates to borderland of
right,
Russia, and
right.
which is the most interesting term because it's like, ooh, Ukraine is the borderland for Russia. Wow, I had this like big like wow moment when I heard that. I was like, what does Ukraine mean? Oh, oh, this is serious. This is their border. They're like borderland to what? To Russia.
Right,
Got you. So
right.
I think it's really interesting because we look at obviously the war dynamics are different, and you guys were going in as a fighting force from across the world, right? And not just oh
Right.
we're neighbors, we're fighting, we're going to take over one another. But I suppose like what's your thoughts on? I mean, outside of just the pure like military tactics. Well, actually, let's talk about some of the tactics because we've seen the advent of how do you say consumer drones like a DJI Mavic 2 or 3, which is used for video.
Yeah.
The ability to jerry rig them to unleash payloads and basically assassinate people in cars. Like, did you guys have anything like that as Marines or in collaboration with other units at the time, or what
I
was the
will
situation?
I will be completely honest with you and letting you know that this is why I now own up to my age in the game,
Yeah,
right? Because no, uh, in my time, when the Iraq War began, 2003, 2004, 2005, I did not have to worry about drones being
right,
used in the way that they are against me. So that's why, when we titled this Modern Warfare, that was one of the first things that came to my mind that I said we have to touch on is the fact that, yeah, they're dealing with technology on a level that I personally can't say I know what it's like to have
right,
a drone scoping me, a drone hunting me down, a drone
right.
sending live feeds of everything I'm doing, and like you said, some drones with payloads that can't take me out or take my team
Right.
out.
I don't know
So
how much video games you played back in the day, but I remember I believe it was Black Ops 2 cuz the Black Ops 1 was like serious like old school like Rambo style and psychological warfare JFK era stuff, right? And then we had the video game Black Ops 2 from Call of Duty Black Ops 2 where it changed entirely where it's like okay, yeah, now we got drones and robots and different like slightly futuristic stuff. And I could be confusing 2 and 3, but I'm like, wait, no, that's what's happening now. Like you could literally, if you really wanted to, program an entire fleet of drones to just zoom in, cause a bunch of chaos, basically just harass a unit and then send one drone in to just drop a payload in and just cause a lot of havoc, kill a lot of people.
Exactly.
And at that point, it's like, man, like all the only thing that you have to contend with is, how many drones do you have? Yeah, do you have somebody who can fly it? So that is some scary stuff. I will ask specifically in the Ukraine front. We ran into issues of, okay, so Russia's come in and now they're taking over a nuclear power plant. Oh, and now they're targeting a school, or now they shot at a movie theater. Was that something that you guys ran into? Well, were there any rules against, like, hey, don't mess with the power plant because that could cause a lot of problems?
Yes, yes, yes. That's exactly what the Geneva Conventions are for, and and those certain rules of engagement are for. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't go in, even though you think and it looks like it's just all out warfare, kill everything, burn everything. There are still rules within it, so we don't typically attempt to attack anything that involves infrastructure. So, like you said, nuclear power, schools, hospitals, places that civilians you live in, houses, um, unless you happen to be taking fire from those places, and then
Mm-hmm.
that kicks in the whole survival clause where you gotta defend yourself, or
Mm-hmm.
your other individuals have to defend themselves. So that is the only time that anything that's vital to the infrastructure of uh, a place, a country, a city, that's the only time anything like that's ever looked towards to be attacked. Now, are those rules violated? Yeah. Are there war crimes? Yeah.
Right.
I'm not gonna BS or try to act like there aren't things like that aren't happening. And just like you mentioned, we're positive that the Ukrainians are dealing with that with the Russians.
Right.
They
And
might not be adhering to all the laws of war and all.
right. And we also have the opposite side where it's came out recently that, okay, we believe that the CIA trained Ukrainian team to go in and basically bomb a pipeline, an oil pipeline, to disrupt the infrastructure. Um, and we're actually getting some questions, and I want to make sure we answer them early rather than later. So we'll pull up DJ Play Nice's question in the feed in
Sure.
just a moment. But we've seen where, even in response, because Ukraine was getting hammered, right? And then all of a sudden, oh, okay, well, we had a drone go in and strike a building and unleash a payload in it, and okay, well, this person, all of a sudden, some of these Russian diplomats are getting assassinated. Oh, this one guy got killed. And it's like, wait, the fog of war is thick, right? And what's true and what's not, beyond just um, the X's and O's of combat. Now we have like information warfare, where beyond just like we're hiding our signals and stuff. Beyond all that, where the public sentiment needs to be on our side. So that's a question that I have, is like, were you, when you served early on in the war, were you at all concerned, or did your commanders ever communicate anything to you that says, like, hey, we need to be careful because we don't want the American people to become upset with what we're doing here, or we don't want the world stage to be tainted against us?
Yes, I was always told in the Marine infantry, never do anything that you don't feel you can own up to later.
Yeah.
Right? And that's in front of your parents, in front of your family back home, in front of the news, and especially, in front of fellow Marines. Never do anything that you can't own up to later.
Hmm.
And I personally, that set me pretty much straight as I was going through on my own. I have to admit. Can I say real quick?
Go ahead.
These wars have opened my eyes up to the fact that while we were involved in Iraq and Afghanistan, I always wondered, hey, does society know what we're doing, or does this matter that we're here? And now I'm getting a chance to see what it's like while these other countries are involved in wars. And I know, just like every other military person knows, that hey, they do have guys out there that are on the ground, grunts, special forces, you name them. There are people out there that are getting the job done and doing some dirty stuff out there right now. And I wondered, does anybody else care? And so
Hmm.
what hits me is just the idea of knowing that I don't know, I didn't like for it to feel like, damn, no one in the US cared about what we might have been doing,
Right. Or
or
going
or,
through.
or, or paid attention to.
Yeah.
But now, years later, since now that I'm here in the States, and now that I'm hearing what's going on with other militaries in other parts of the world, I do give a little bit of credit to the fact that you can't fault civilians for not knowing exactly what's going on with your war,
Yeah.
because it's so hard now to know what's going on. I mean, I actually do care and pay attention to what's going on with Israel and Gaza and with Ukraine and the Russians, but it's so far, it's so distant, it's so removed from my day to day challenges in life that I have to admit, the same way that I was like, man, if I make it out of the war back to the States, I will always care what our troops are doing and pay attention, and I'll be locked in, hooked, and I'll be caring, I'll be paying attention and focused. But now I see there are times when I'm not paying attention to what's going on there in Ukraine, and
Hmm.
that's just the way the nature of life works. It's not to take
Yeah.
away from anybody, but that's what's happening there, and and you still have to deal with what you're going through on your front. Because as veterans, we used to have that lens of looking at things like, hey, nobody else cares what we're going through. It's just us, for us, with us. Nobody in the country is paying attention to what we're doing or where we're going. That's the mindset I had for years
Mm.
as an active duty Marine. I felt that it was only a battle. Like, yes, we're all Americans, but who has to bear the brunt of it,
Mm. The tip
of
of the
that
spear.
battle? Right,
Yeah.
right. So each time that I would come home on leave, it would baffle me, man. I mean, I'm only 5'8", back then 150 pounds or so. So I used to wonder, how is it that I keep getting called to go to Iraq 2 and 3 times when you have so many other people bigger than me, healthier, stronger, but this is their country too, you know?
Hmm.
But they aren't in this fight with me. I don't, I can't, you know, it took so I don't know. It just took me a while to wrap my head around things, from being in
Yeah.
the fight to now being, just an onlooker, just as everyone else is.
Yeah.
So
That's actually something I never considered before. That the soldiers or people who have had to go out and fight the wars would feel isolated in that way. That they literally feel
yeah,
that people not only do not care about me, but they don't care about what I'm doing. You know.
right. Yeah, and it's supposed to be for the country. So you
Yeah.
walk into a gym, you walk into a gym full of people working out, or you go to a gun range full of people shooting, and you're like, hey, the war's going on. Why am I the only one that's got to be facing this when I have all these people here that want to work out and that want to shoot and want to fight and I want to be in shape? Why am I the only one that's bearing the brunt of this? How does my number keep getting called as a
Mm.
grunt, for another tour and another tour?
Right.
I have to admit, it was a very unique and maybe flawed mindset at the time. But there was a time when I would come home on leave from the wars where I was kind of upset. Like, why aren't all these other guys that I see bigger than me, stronger than me, whatever? Why aren't people helping me with this? That
Yeah.
that used to be just a major mind shift that I had to understand myself, that sometimes just the fact that you are the only ones that face the war, um, can in its own way isolate you, which is okay, because you have to think, well, who goes to war? Do the mechanics go? No, mechanics are all fixing cars. Who goes to the war? Is it the car washers? No, car washers are all fixing war. So you can't be mad. You join the military and they ask you to go to war, because who goes to war? It's the military.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did want to say I saw some questions from DJ Play Nice and another listener viewer who's in the live audience, and DJ Play Nice did recommend a website called One Tribe Foundation. If you're familiar, um, and it's for veterans. Great resource, promotes community. So, anyone's
All right.
interested, go check it out. Obviously, do your homework. Always do your homework, but check it out. See if you can find some community in that. That said, yeah, that's a great. When I was actually coming out of high school, I was working in IHOP, and there was a Marine having breakfast, and he tried to recruit me. And obviously, this was way after the initial onset of the war. This was probably back in like 2012, where yeah, we still have bodies in you know Afghanistan, but are
Right.
we still in the same level of combat? No, not the same. But that's a thought. Like, man, I'm coming back to regular society, and everybody's moving about all happy, like nothing's happening. But yet, you're getting pulled, number guard pulled 3 times to go and, you know, go put rounds down range and watch a friend die, and like the most horrible things. And like, if people who know you know that some of the medical issues that you've had, how's your hearing?
Oh man, I've had hearing aids for 10 years now, bro. The M249 saw just destroyed my eardrums.
Right, which is a lot of guys like yourselves' favorite gun in the world, but it comes at a cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about it, man. Tell me
So
about it.
there's that. Let's before we transition to the differences between the modern warfare that we're seeing, and or even some of the unconventional warfare that we're seeing in uh, the Gaza and Israel conflicts. That initial surge on where the somebody's going to call them terrorists, somebody will call them freedom fighters. I don't care. I don't have a name. I just know they came in. They killed a lot of people, a
Yeah.
lot. And before we talk about that, because it's kind of spicy, let's. Wendy Schaefer says, "Thank you for your service."
Oh,
Um,
thanks. Thanks.
yeah. Before we talk about that, let's talk about this question that we have from DJ Play Nice. Thank you, moderator DJ. We have, what are some of the most common misconceptions about the conflict you served in? So, the Iraq War.
For one, I'm gonna say this, in a joking manner. Most people think or believe there's no water in Iraq. And I'm here to tell you, I've done boat operations in Iraq along the Tigris and Euphrates rivers.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah, that makes
I'll
sense.
let you know. I'll let you know that, yeah, that there there obviously is a lot of water in the middle of that desert. Next, I always had people wondering and asking me like, how did you make it and how could you make it up through the streets and where there were car bombs at and and you weren't in Humvees most of the time and you're walking the street on foot most of the time. And the best way I can tell you, man, is like, I know, when you see things on the news, they're going to glorify the worst of the worst, right? So it's going to make you
Mhm.
think the whole country was that dangerous, as that particular area was at some particular time. But I always felt like whether I was in Baghdad, because we were the first ones to make it into Baghdad and we pulled down Saddam's statue, whether it was in Baghdad or whether it was in Fallujah, right after the Blackwater guys, contractors were murdered.
Mhm.
I felt like it's just like being in any American city that's deemed dangerous or
Mhm.
bad or hood. It's kind of like you know you know how to move. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? I mean, you know, if I'm over here, this might be a place where I need to tuck my chain,
Yeah.
or if I'm over here, this might be a place where I know my pocket knife and my firearm are easily accessible. That's the way I akin a lot of Iraq to, is that you know how to move where you move,
Yeah.
um, in different areas of Iraq. So it's not like this idea that everything had to be 24/7 chaos like you were hearing on the news, because uh, there's plenty of times where you're in fairly safe or quiet environments,
Mhm.
even in those dangerous cities. It's just like you just need to know how to move and where to move and when to
Mhm.
move, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask another question.
Yeah.
And we'll publish this question. It says, "Would you please share something about your mentors or role models and their influences on your career?" I suppose military role models we'll include in there, but were there, I guess, even any civilian role models that you had that I guess helped you along? Their words kind of rang in your ears.
Yeah, yeah. My stepdad is actually a fireman in Orlando, and he
Okay.
also rides on the helicopter for the sheriff's office. So he does the medic duties and the police officer duties from above. He's always been my number one role model. I have
Yeah,
to admit.
busy
And
man.
yeah, yeah, he's a fireman. Like I said, he's fireman and a deputy sheriff, and he flies on their helicopter unit with them. He's always been the one that taught me, duty and service, and caring for others and protecting others is, like something that's noble and that's needed in our society. So I really believe I took after him, and seeing him go off and do his 24 hours on the fire department, and then I think it was 48 hours off. Seeing him devote himself to that, coming home sometimes after fallen trees from fires that fallen on him and stuff like that. But still knowing that he saw it, and the other gentlemen that were with him, uh the guys I also ended up growing up and looking up towards, seeing being around firemen really let me see that, like, you can be tough, you can be macho, but you can help people with it,
Yeah,
because they still care about uh, being in shape and working out and stuff like that. But what do they do with theirs? They use
yeah,
theirs to go and help people. They use their strength and whatnot to go and help people. And then I also got to give credit though to the marshals, man. The U.S. Marshals, their fugitive squad. They were individuals that I was getting to learn and pattern myself after when I was around in high school age, and all of them for whatever reason came out of the Marines. So that was what really locked me on to want to join the U.S. Marine Corps. Was learning that the guys that seemed to have gone the farthest in the U.S. Marshals were all Marines, and then when I looked at jobs, it was they'd either joined the military police or they came from the infantry. And I decided that being a city kid from Orlando, I didn't just want to be the Mickey Mouse kid anymore. I wanted to learn how to survive so that I could go anywhere, everywhere, and be in the indoors, outdoors, snow, desert, and that I could make it.
yeah, yeah. Definitely, I love that. Um, and you're right. And firefighters are kind of known for being in shape, strong guys. Obviously,
Yeah,
you don't have to have a six pack uh, to be a firefighter, but I'm sure it helps to have some
yeah,
good core strength, to be able to lift things, to be able to pick people up and carry them, out of a building, to be able to carry all that gear because it's pounds and pounds and pounds and jackets and a helmet and they got an oxygen tank because if they can't lift that, they're going to die. Um,
right,
and so the fact that you said that strength is not just some selfish thing that they're in the gym. Right? I'm not trying to say you can't go to the gym. That's fine. But like
yeah,
they're just, doing a male beauty pageant. They're not just doing shows. They're using that strength and they're using that God given power to
yep,
go and impact their communities positively.
right,
And you can't say enough good things about those guys. So shout out to them. Shout out to your to pops who showed you the way, and
yeah,
you know was that guy for you. That's awesome.
yep,
And shout out to the marshals for the positive work that they do. Let's there's some more questions, but let's dive into the issues that we ran into recently. If you've been following the news, there was more or less an invasion that happened. It was a crazy attack into Israel from the Hamas fighters. Some will call them Hamas terrorists. I don't care what you call them, but the organization Hamas sent guys in with a, a vehicle that I had not seen in any sort of warfare. In fact, I don't think anyone has seen them, like most people, anyways. motorized paragliders holding 1 to 2 fighters coming over pretty much into the city, landing, and they just like open fire, open season on a festival. Was it like a
Yeah,
freedom festival or something like that, or something that's just real hippy dippy? And a lot of people died. A lot of
yeah,
people's bodies were paraded through the streets and trucks. You saw this one young lady who was um, clearly abused, legs were broken, um, in the back of a truck, clearly in really bad shape, probably dead. People were confused for a long time. It's like, oh, I think that's this girl from Germany. Well, we don't know that. It's the fog of war. We're not sure. Maybe it is. There's a lot of misinformation. It's probably not her. Turns out it was her. She was murdered and thrown in the back of a truck, and God knows what else happened. And then you saw a lot of additional pictures of parents who had hidden their children in a bunker and went back into the house and were murdered by groups of insurgents and just just insane stuff. Um, and as a backlash, as a response, and many people felt that it was fine that this happened. The IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, pretty much kicked it into high gear, turned off all like the water, food, electricity, blockaded the place more or less. And now we have a situation where there's millions of civilians and the Hamas structure kind of intermingled. Hospitals being bombed, blown up. Somebody said there was, or it was reported that an ambulance was targeted and blown up. But the other side of that is like, hey, actually, what's being said is, well, this looks like an ambulance, but it's actually a Hamas vehicle. Just they used an ambulance, and I'm trying to explain it in a way that it makes sense. It's been said that Hamas more or less uses human shields to allow themselves to move more freely. And if they can't move freely, the public sentiment, whether it's American sentiment or the worldwide sentiment, would be shifted into their favor that Israel is being a bully, they're committing genocide on top of the what some would call apartheid situation, and it's a bad situation all the way around. I don't think anyone can look at it and be like, that's a good situation. Like, that would be dumb. In your experience, how much of what you're seeing now did you guys have to deal with? Were the opposing forces that you had to counter, were they using human shields in the same way as Hamas has been using? Or did you guys have to worry, like, hey, we gotta get to this guy. He's in the bottom of a hospital. He's in the basement of a hospital, but like there's tunnels under the hospital. Should we just blow up the hospital? Like, how did you guys deal with that? Did you have to deal with it?
I did have to deal with situations like that when I was in Fallujah
Mm.
uh, in 2004 during my second tour. 2004 was the year of the big battle of Fallujah. Um, I'm talking about the initial invasion of Fallujah, which happened days after the American contractors were killed. We had similar situations. First off, before I get into that, though, I have to say, as a Marine infantry guy, I have so much respect for the Israeli Defense Forces, all right, for the IDF. They are surrounded by enemies. Their country is literally surrounded by enemies, yet those citizens and those veterans there defend their country to the T daily. All right, we don't know what that feels like. You know,
Yeah,
we get along with Mexico, we get along with Canada for the most part, and then we're surrounded by water. But to be in Israel's shoes and to be surrounded by, you know, what they're surrounded by, and then I care deeply about their hand-to-hand combat, their Krav Maga. I'm sorry, I'm
yeah, Krav
pronouncing it wrong.
Maga.
Okay, Krav Maga. I have so much respect for that
Mm.
system. of hand-to-hand combat that I can't give you enough on how much I look up to the Israelis. All right, but I look at what happened as a serious intelligence failure on somebody's part, man.
Hmm.
I see a lot of that as, okay, you have great spies. Where the hell are your spies if they aren't there when the attack's going down and they're flying, they're flying over you, and the type of craft that they were using to enter Israel. I mean, I totally don't understand what their intelligence agencies um, were doing, but things like that happen. They will happen. It has happened. Now they have to pick up the pieces and continue to fight. And I see that they are. I feel that they are. Um, Mentioning what you're saying in terms of yes, I had to face times where I was ordered to fire on ambulances because there were individuals that we were going against were, exactly for that purpose, using the ambulances to come attack us. They knew that we wouldn't attack schools, mosques, churches, or ambulances. So what do? That's where they coagulate. That's where they concentrate their forces. That they're bringing all their guns and supplies into the schools. They're, instead of using the ambulances to transport bodies and to help someone, they're using that to transport, more and more guns. And so, yeah, I have had times where I had to see an ambulance and take a few, I would pause first and, try to see, was it correct? Was it safe? Was it uh, helping humanity as it should have? Only to take fire from it. At which
Hmm.
time, I would have to return fire. Um, I did face, such situations like that. It's just they know that off rip and off top, we will respect the Geneva Conventions and we will bring a code. We're gonna fight you as gentlemen first, all right? And that's the way
Hmm.
we approach it all. But once we see that they digress to becoming cutthroat, then yeah, in our own ways, without violating the rules of war, we get cutthroat too. All
Yeah.
right, and that's just the nature and the business of war. I'll
Right.
leave it at that. But that's just the nature and business of warfare. There.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, and obviously we're somewhat doing it too. But we look at the response, the Twitter X response, the Facebook response, the YouTube know it alls response. Guys who literally have never seen war a day in my life, in many people's lives. All we have is the stories from those who have done it, and unfortunately had to do it well. Um, and we say, okay, well, based on what we know and based on something that was written down, we should never do that. Based on our moral code of what polite society does, a society that's not at war does, we should never do these things. Um, and part of the issue that we're running into um, is there are so many pictures of children that we're running into, like so many pictures of bodies just mangled, and it's not it's mainly concentrated on one side because all the Israeli citizens that were going to die have already died or are already injured and running their course. But now we're seeing like this what feels like a really lopsided situation. Do you see some sort of end in sight? Like as a guy who's had to go in and fight a war, who has received orders from the commander, who has successfully survived three different tours, and obviously multiple campaigns at this point. Do you see some sort of end in sight that makes sense? Obviously, there was some sort of intelligence breakdown or something that led to this, but what's the end? What do you see?
Honestly, brother, I don't see an immediate end. I actually see things getting slightly worse before they get better. I mean, just the fact that yes, we have what's going on, and it's 100 years long history with Israel and the Gaza situation. That obviously I see no end in sight with that. Um, I actually feel that we are steps away from. I mean, I'm not conspiracy theorizing or anything else, but what we have going on between us and firing back at Iran and our Iranian proxies right now puts us, I feel, on the doorsteps of being at going to war again.
Yeah.
I actually see, in the Marines, we believe that every, say, 7 to 10 years, countries start feeling themselves again. They start feeling one feels they're a little tougher or a little, that they want more of this land or they want more of that commodity or product or
Yeah.
every 7 to 10 years we feel in the Marines that countries start to get, they start to feel themselves, smell themselves, and that you have to have wars to settle things and to straighten the geopolitical stage again. And I believe that's about where we are now. The only problem is like you said, the fact that there are multiple fronts with this. I mean, you mentioned that's like three separate fights alone if we were to look at it as being uh, the Russians versus Ukrainians, that's one. You got Israel and Gaza, that's two. And then you have what's going on with us, America versus any of these Iranian backed proxies, where
Hmm.
we are literally firing back right now.
Yeah.
Um, that's three separate phases, separate avenues, arenas of true warfare going on. And
Not to
yes,
mention, not to mention some of the other pots that are brewing with the Taiwan China
right,
situation. Some people are fearful of um, China having some sort of direct conflict with us, although that's how likely is that? I don't know. Then we even have always the threat of North Korea popping off. And we have some questions in the comment section asking about the threats on our southern border, which we've never really had any true threats other than, let's say, the uh, um, cartels down there. But they like to do what's good for business, so they don't generally do anything insane, just enough. But there's been some questions about sleeper cells and training camps. Somebody I know did a report um, talking about how they witnessed, or somebody has witnessed, a training camp, a Hamas training camp on our southern border, which I'm hesitant to even talk on that because I'm like, oh, is that just more fear mongering? Do we just are we trying to get people excited for war? I don't know if we should have been excited for war, but are you hearing anything about that? Are you at all concerned about stuff like that?
the warmongering.
Well, not the warmongering specifically, but let's say the idea that there are specifically this guys coming in with all the families and children, but there are some guys who have come in who have been stopped and some who have not been stopped, who are from countries other than South America, uh, some Middle Eastern countries, and the question is, are some of these guys coming across who are claiming asylum? Are they
Oh,
agents of
right, right.
what they would deem enemy um, units? Like, are they sleeper cells, or waiting for their moment where they, okay, now I'm going to go blow up a train or something like that, which we've seen a lot of that in the last year.
But
Factories combusting.
I'm going to tell you that I have the utmost confidence in all of the agencies like Homeland Security or uh, Immigration and Naturalization. I have faith that they are vetting these guys, and they have been, and they will continue to. I have faith that all of our agencies, whether it's intel agencies or uh, um, the smaller level agencies, I believe that they are vetting all of these people to make sure that they are not, an additional threat to us or the
Yeah,
area that they go to. I have faith that they are being vetted in a
yeah.
very thorough and positive way.
So our guy Jova Q in the chat was kind enough to
Right,
assist me in my words. Said military aged males from hostile nations. I think
right,
that's the best way to say it. Thank you, brother. The best way to say it, because it's kind of a scary situation where you're like, oh, this guy is 19, 20, 21. One of I we just did a training with one of the interns for the production company that I run, and we trained her how to shoot. And I was like, hey, so for our viewing audience, because we did a video, it's not out yet, but if you guys want to watch it, Armed Atlas on YouTube or youtube.com/Armed Atlas. It'll be there. And her concern is, well, there's a lot of guys coming in my age, potentially felons in their own country, but they're not here, so they can come across. If they can sneak through, whether it's literally sneaking through or making it through in some asylum, getting through, and then the world is their oyster, whether they want to live a good life or continue on in the ways that they maybe have known if they're living a gangster lifestyle per se. Um, so there are some people out there who are concerned. I'll just say that about the military age males from hostile nations. I know you said you have the utmost
Got it.
respect in our people's ability to vet. I don't know if I feel exactly the same way, just because we've seen some wild stuff, but you know, hopefully, let's. I think we're at a point where we can transition and kind of talk a little bit more about your story, unless there's somebody who really has a serious question about some of the stuff that's going on. Did you want to share something?
I'll say just one thing real quick.
Yes, bro. Go ahead.
I have mentally prepared myself for the fact that veterans, we may all be needed to be called back for any type of duty to help. If the war situation gets that bad again, if we're anywhere on World War III level or anything like that, I'm not I'm not counting out the fact that the country, the same way when Iraq started, we started looking for we had
Yeah,
contractors who were looking for
military
prior
contractors.
military.
Mm-hmm.
I can see something like that happening again, where all of those guys that have men and women that have done work anywhere around the world, and particularly Iraq and Afghanistan, and particularly in the combat arms or special ops fields, we're going to be called back, or not formally called back, but in some way going to be asked to use that expertise again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm prepared to do my job again if that's what it comes to. It is a lot different for me
Yeah.
now because I wasn't married or with kids during the war ever.
Yeah.
But if it came to that, on a level where, because I still feel, for all the conflicts that we have going on, we are far too small as an American military.
Yeah. Small.
Far too small.
Yeah, I mean, in reality is we can't be everywhere at once, especially when
Yeah.
we're sending two aircraft carriers to, you know, back up the conflict over in Israel, Gaza. It's like, well, how many do we have? We just sent two over there. Like, what happens if we need one here? Like, obviously, there's more than two. In fact, how big is the fleet? That's a great question. But the it would be easy to be spread thin. I do want to talk about you and your story a little bit. I mean, we've talked about some of the things that you've done, some of the things that you've seen. But I want to, obviously, like I'm going through because we had a little conversation beforehand. We talked about the story of WarDog. Do you ever share your name? I don't think we've said your actual name. Do you ever share that,
Oh yeah, it's Cass Smith.
Mr. Smith?
Yep.
I love that.
Yep.
So
Or Carnell Smith, but I hate that first name. But yeah, that's my true government name. Carnell, nickname Cass, CAS Smith. And
Carnell.
I
That's a
go
black
by.
that's a black name for real.
I know,
Carnell.
right? I know, right? I know.
Carnell.
And
I love it.
I'm a junior at that.
Ooh, Junior. I love it. There we go. So I suppose you talked about you've been deployed 3 times. You were in infantry. The thumbnail that we have on this video for the YouTube side, and I'm not sure how it'll look on the podcast side, is there's a picture of you and one of your guys shirtless but wearing vest with
Hmm.
the big boy machine gun.
Right.
Who is the guy with you?
That was my team leader. Yeah, this happened to be a fellow Marine. That was my team leader.
Yeah. Is he still around? Did he make it back, or what's the story with
Yeah,
him?
he survived. He survived. He survived. He lives in Houston now. We kick it, chop it up whenever we can.
Hmm.
Um, that particular mission for where that picture is taken, we were on a 30-day surveillance operation on to watch a road,
A
and
road.
to watch a road. This was a road. This was back when they were placing IEDs along roads all the time, and
Hmm.
having roadside IEDs. We had one individual lose an eye because a bomb was placed. And after that, we didn't play any games anymore about that road or any other road. We would hide in the desert, even though it was 120, 130 degrees. We would hide there all day, all night, watching and waiting for everyone that would stop. And, for whatever reason, they were stopping alongside the road. And we eventually took out the individuals that needed to be neutralized.
Dang. So
Yeah.
with that, were you guys far enough back where you would have to use longer range tools to get the job done, or was it more of an intermediate range where your weapon that you used would have been sufficient?
We were at a good enough range where I'd say between 500 and 1,000 yards.
Oh
With
yeah.
my with me having the M249, I was pretty accurate always out to like 800 to 1,000 yards. So
Uh-huh.
we were in a really really great position to be able to engage anything that we would need because of the M249s that we had on hand.
Yeah. Now, what I wanted to note is in that picture, you guys look like babies, bro. Like you guys were some young bucks. My younger brother, he's just turned 18 not long ago, and I was like, y'all look like him, just like completely ripped, just real lean, just all muscle, and
Yeah,
literally just got out of high school. Like
yeah,
you might still be in high school. Like the babyest face of baby faces. Like we see a lot of these warfighter pictures and guys from like Zero Dark 30 and they got beards and stuff. And it's like, oh man, this guy's been a SEAL for 10 years. Y'all literally just started. And it's the craziest thing to me. Like, hey, let's get this guy. He just got out of high school. He don't have his driver's license. Give him a gun, and not just any gun. This one goes bar, like, and this send him over to a different country. Give him a new dad. Give him some brothers, and just send him out. Let them do what they want to do. Clearly, it's not exactly like that. Like, there's a lot of structure and there's a lot of responsibility and a lot of accountability. If you guys were to screw up, you can go to jail. Yeah, and I'm here. Like, military jail is no joke. But like, was that crazy to you? Like, hey, let's. I just got out of high school. Let's go do war.
No, actually, for me, everything was a calculated step. I have to be honest with you. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, I was one of those guys who, I grew up in taking AP classes. I was already accepted into several colleges. I had some academic scholarships that I could have taken, but I had to personally prove to myself that I could make it in the Marine infantry. For whatever reason, in my head, that was what the big dogs were, and I had to prove to myself that I could run with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that in federal law enforcement, if you can combine uh, military experience with a college degree or prior law enforcement with a college degree, I knew I would probably be able to get on at any organization that I wanted to. So I knew that by every, each time, each tour that they were sending us on, to go back to Iraq, I knew that that was stacking up the chips in terms of our resumes, that they was making us all greater candidates to go on and do bigger and better things later on. So
Yeah.
I knew that, like I said, I knew that with the combat experience and with combining that with a college degree, I would have my pick and choose of where I thought I'd like to go afterwards after the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. It's like, okay, this is a career move. I'm gonna go in and do a career path that will basically allow me to like do what I'd like to do. Like a lot of guys go to the
Right.
military and they say, hey, I'm gonna go to the military. I'm gonna do my 6 years. I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna get my free education. I'm gonna get the VA loans. I'm gonna kind of have something set up well in life. And a lot of them don't realize, okay, well, when I go there to get the VA loans and to get the health care, I'm gonna have to lose my health. Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
lose the ability to enjoy my home.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to get a security clearance, maybe I'll be okay, but
Yep.
maybe I'll be in a base that gets hit, and you know anything could happen. I knew a young
Speaking
lady.
truth.
I knew a young lady who she she said she had a pretty cool job. She was a interrogator, but but who knows what kind of nightmare she has. I'm not saying that she was like some sort of like black ops CIA interrogator, but you start seeing stuff and you start running into people and you start hearing people's testimonies and stories, and that stuff follows you. Like I don't I would not want to have the type of nightmares that I'm sure that you've had from the things that you've seen. And I know you've admitted to having a bit of insomnia because you guys had to be on high alert all the time. Like someone's coming
Yeah.
to kill you. If you sleep, you will die. And does that ever go away? Like that feeling of, if I go to sleep right now, like you know that nothing's gonna happen, but something in the back of your head is still talking to you. Like, don't go to sleep. Like that's
Yeah.
crazy. That's crazy.
But
For a
sometimes that's
job.
what keeps you alive. Sometimes that's
Yeah.
what keeps you alive.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm to be clear, I'm not calling you crazy. I'm just saying that situation is just wild, and it's unfortunate that the you don't get to turn that off. You don't get to say like, "Hey, I'm just going to go to Hawaii for a few days, surf or lay on the beach and just purely enjoy it because you sacrificed so much." And
Yeah.
we Saturday and Sunday in church, we did a salute to service, and all the NFL teams, they wore a special hoodie. They're going to make a lot of money on their salute to service. Hopefully, they donate it to some organizations to help guys like you who have done a lot and who have given a lot. Um, but I really don't think we realize, even those who dislike what we did in the Middle East, and there's a lot of stuff not to like. I hope we realize like there's a lot of guys who they're just trying to help, and they got hurt real bad in ways that we'll never understand. And we should have some compassion. If we can help them out, let's do it. And I just hope we can do that. Off my soapbox. Um,
Right.
Somebody commented and they said that the U.S. Navy currently has 11 active aircraft carrier, and two of them are in the Middle East hanging out by Israel, which is we're running out at that point. So uh, let's talk about. So you said you intentionally went into the Marines. You intentionally said, "Hey, let's get our hands dirty. I'm gonna get this job that I've always wanted." Um, and
Yeah, I blew off the academic scholarships and put them on hold. Luckily,
wow,
in the state of Florida, I was able to just show my military discharge form, and then I was still able to get the academic scholarships back afterwards. So
yeah,
obviously that helped. But yeah, I put all that on the side burner because I said I don't want to just be this city guy from Orlando who just
yeah,
from the Mickey Mouse city. I really want to learn to survive in the outdoors around the world, and I'm proud to say I did get that much out of it. I mean, even without the war, I was able to say, yeah, I could survive in the deep forests of North Carolina, the desert of Southern California, or the jungles of Japan, and that alone, was what I was asking for.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and hey, I get, and I want to know like what kind of scholarships were they offering you at the time? Was it like did you turn down like a full ride at all? Were we getting at least some
Yeah.
half rides?
No, these were
Golly,
full. These were full
and he
academic
he was he was a
scholarships.
smart kid, and he said, "Put me on the front line." I don't know.
These were
I don't
because
know.
like I said, I knew the resume building that would
Yeah,
to use that combat experience from the
yeah.
Marines. As long as you have a degree, man, I could have used that.
Just go wherever you want to
With
go.
right with a proper security clearance, you could take that and go wherever you'd like to go, man.
So what are awesome moderator for the chat, DJ Play Nice, is asking if the bootstrap or the strap program is still active. The career path idea just presented by Sergeant WarDog made me wonder. Are you familiar with that? I have no idea what that is. This bootstrap or strap program. Maybe I'll look it up.
No, that could be though because we have four different branches, so I don't know which branch has that program or what it's. I've never heard of it with the Marines,
Bootstrapper
but
program.
obviously it exists and it does benefit someone, right?
I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm trying to look it up as we're talking, but
Got
we'll move forward. Simon says train. Welcome to the chat. Simon says train says we have a bunch of old men playing military guys, and the average age of a troop is 18 and 19. I mean, how old is Chris Pratt? Right? But what I mean, what's the average age of a Navy SEAL?
Well, they have to have experience for
Yeah,
there, so I want to say that they're like early 20s. I want to say
yeah. Well, I suppose that's the
early to
question.
mid, early to mid. I want to
Yeah,
say
I
early
mean,
to mid.
Chris Pratt's in his, probably mid 30s at this point, and all the major actors from the movie or the series that he was in. Oh my gosh, what's it called? They're all old dudes,
Hmm.
which is fine, but I don't think it really shares or tells a story. This is the point I'm trying to say is I'm not sure that it really tells a story of who's actually going to war, you know, and it's your sons and now your
Right.
daughters, and the question is like, hey, who's getting drafted? If we institute a draft again, are we bringing girls into it? That's a question. I'm not doing that, but maybe you feel differently. Do you feel differently? Do you feel like girls can be drafted? I want to get you canceled, but answer up, buddy.
I don't think we should have to draft females. I don't. I don't. I don't. I don't. That doesn't sit right with me just yet.
Right. Uh, Maybe I'm not progressive enough, but
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
listen, if we're trying to accomplish a certain goal, there's plenty of ladies who are joining the military of their own free will. There are certain roles that, even certain combat roles, where I've heard it's beneficial to have a woman on your team, especially when you're in the Middle East and you need to search somebody. I've
Yeah.
heard it's a big deal if you try to have a guy search a female. Like, it's just not good look and might cause more problems. But I'm sure you could speak to that a little bit better than myself.
Let me give
Yeah.
you a real quick insight or at least opinion. I guess I'll say
Mm-hmm.
far too much of society does not respect what these young people in the military are capable of doing
Mm.
at such young ages. Um, yeah, in the normal realm, the civilian realm, youth is looked down upon. You know, it's experience that counts, it's age, it's time in service, that sort of thing. So no one really gives a whole lot of credit to what the young people in the military can do and are capable of, man. No one understands that. Even as myself, I joined at 18, and within 6 7 months of graduating high school, I was already uh, trained and qualified to do SWAT level stuff that my police back home probably couldn't do. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And
Yeah.
no one wants to give military people their due credit on how smart they are and how capable they are of doing highly sophisticated things, well
Right.
outside of just the infantry field, obviously.
Right.
Um,
Now,
so
I will say this, and this is the only thing I'm going to say that may be considered um, not super flattering towards the military. And I have a big problem with this, especially in the shooting community, because that's where I guess my specialty is at this point. Is there's a lot of guys who show up to a training class, show up to their concealed carry course, whatever, right? Show up to their pistol 1, pistol 2 course, and they say, "Oh yeah, I've shot before. I'm in the military. I was a cook. I was a combat cook." They don't ever say exactly what they did. They just give you some sort of MOS, code, and they keep it moving. And you're like, "Oh, okay, yeah. So this guy knows his way around guns. He was in the military." Or even civilians will say, "Oh yeah, my uncle, he knows all about guns. He was in the military. He showed me handguns," and then they show you exactly what they do, and their form is terrible. Like what they're doing is kind of dangerous, and you're like, "Oh, okay, yeah. Well, obviously, you know this. You got to keep in mind, most people in the military don't specialize in handgun. That's just not what they do. I mean, you specialized on a machine gun. A lot of guys are specializing in just rifles, whether it's the M16 or something bigger, and your handgun is not what you're focused on. Although I'm sure you put some time in with it, especially in boot camp. Um, but that doesn't mean you're going to be some sort of handgun expert qualified to teach other people how to really run it, 50 yards, or how to get competition level ready. Do you disagree with what I'm saying? Have you seen what I'm saying, or am I seeing kind of like a small sample size of the extremely highly qualified handgun shooters that the military is producing? What help me
No,
process these things.
no, you are exactly right, bro. Pistols are, I won't say looked down upon, but even at myself, being an automatic rifleman with the M249, you sort of look down on pistols. You sort of look down on anything that's not automatic. So even in my own stance, because during the war it was so much more important to have the heavy machine gunners down range and
Mm-hmm.
able to do things for you. The Marine Corps never once sent me to a pistol range, bro. The Marine Corps never once gave me a professional course on pistols, that's as an infantry Marine now. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
that
I mean,
it
you're
doesn't
like
mean
literally gonna go fight some people with guns,
right, right.
and they're
It
like,
doesn't
"Don't
mean
even worry about that. Like, learn to run this thing like it's like your life depends on it because it does."
right, right. Because at the time, I mean, it's not to say that it wasn't available somewhere,
Right.
but during the pace of the war, you know what I mean, and how fast things were going, I can attest for myself and at least the guys that were in my unit, we did not have enough time to go through and do pistol calls. Now, did we learn to shoot them? Yeah, obviously. Did I teach myself, or did I eventually find the kind of courses that I can find out here now as a civilian? Yes, definitely. But it is not uncommon to find military guys that are not as great with pistols as you might think they are or should be or will be, because
Hmm.
pistols are looked at as secondary weapons in the military most of the time. You know,
Yeah.
you're looking at rifles or machine guns as being primary weapons, and then pistols being what you get to, when the worst case scenario.
Right. Like
So,
this is really really bad. We can't get this gun up. I guess we got to
right.
pull
So
out some.
you're completely
Yeah.
correct, man, that you will find veterans or active duty military guys that are not as professional or up to speed or up to date or have great mag reload times or have great times withdrawing from a concealed
Yep.
position. I'm going to give you that one straight off the top of your head. What you saw is not some gimmick or some hoax. Um, that's generally what you're going to see most of the time.
Yeah. And that's not to throw any sort of hate at the guys who they're not good with the handgun, but I think the position of humility and walking in and be like, "Hey guys, you know, uh, my weapon of choice was the M16. That's my platform. That's what I ran." Or I was a demolition specialist. We didn't spend a lot of time, you know, doing bill drills, at 50 yards with handguns. That wasn't appropriate. And so, as a guy in the civilian world now, yeah, I'm gonna have to learn this over again. And I think maybe that's hard for a lot of guys because they were good at what they did, and now they have to be not so good. Um,
Yeah, it's
it's
humbling.
humbling.
It's
Yeah,
definitely humbling.
yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, and so all love and respect to those guys, but like let's understand where the lane is, and let's make sure that we're learning what we need to learn, right? And
Right.
not putting yourself at a disadvantage, because if you go in thinking that you know something you really don't, it's gonna slow you down. Yeah, I want you to win. Um, so one of
I
the
actually,
questions, huh?
I'm
No,
sorry.
no, no. I
I,
want
I
you to
was
go
just
ahead.
gonna say, real quick. I actually, whenever I attend any type of course or training, I go in with that mindset of I don't know shit. I
Yeah,
go in with that attitude of complacency kills. So coming in here thinking whatever I did yesterday, last week, or whatever matters now, and for this knowledge or this course, doesn't matter for shit.
yeah,
It's
yeah. It
time
doesn't.
to you have to kind of humble yourself and put what you thought you knew out of the window and learn things as the instructors presenting them to you.
Right. And I will say this: some instructors, they're not the best teachers. Like they have a way of doing things, and in a lot of ways, they're kind of old farts. And it's like, ah, this is like annoying, especially as somebody who's learned how to shoot to a certain level. I'm not some competition shooter, but I can do a thing or two, because I've seen a thing or two, and I've done a thing or two. Not like some people, but well, and so sometimes it's hard to submit yourself to some guys who you're like, okay, this guy's got an ego. He's trained 1,000 people. Now he's kind of annoying. Okay, but moving to a question that I had specifically for you, because I know we got off topic a little bit, is um, the there's this concept that there are certain what they call war hawks, right, in DC, who they're
Hmm.
just kind of itching for the next war.
Yeah,
I know you
hawks and the
know
doves.
the hawks and the doves. You know a little something about that, and so there's people in general population who are just they seem excited to go to war, and especially the guys in DC who will never see a front line, who will never really experience the impacts of the war except for maybe a financial gain or incentive. Or maybe they have something inside of them that's like, hey, we need to go save these people or help these people, so let's go to war to accomplish that. Did that ever come to mind when you were active, or does that come to mind even now? Um, what is your thoughts about there's a bunch of old dudes in DC willing to put you through hell for the mission?
It's always come to mind. It's always been there back then and now. I just try to come to grips with playing my role and understanding that I am, once you sign that contract, I did become a cog in a very large, violent machine. And I don't know, it's sort of like the faster you're able to accept your position within that within that realm or that sphere, it makes it a little easier to wrap your head around the fact that yes, there are other individuals somewhere else who have no direct connection to this who might be guiding me to my death.
Yeah,
I do totally get where you're coming from when you say that. So I understand what you're getting at, bro.
yeah. I mean, my concern is, I have younger siblings, some who are active. I've had siblings who are no longer active duty. I have siblings who want to get in the military, who would like to join, and it's like, as much as there's glory in the military and going out and doing the job and coming home, there's also the bad side, which you've clearly pointed out. Obviously, you've had experiences that no one can take from you. Some things
Mhm.
that I'm sure you wouldn't give up for anything. It's formed who you are today. It's given you so much expertise and kind of some direction and maybe some purpose. But also, there are the side effects that no one can really empathize with because they have no idea, right? It's like, man, I would hate to see us get into another war and for my brothers to be pulled into something that they would just not. I mean, potentially they could be fine, but on the other side, maybe not. So, man, there was a question in here that said, how did you stay sane and motivated while active?
Oh, bro, I keep a party going in my head at all times. Do you understand me? Regardless of what's going on, where we are, what's
Mhm.
going on, and what negatively is going on, I keep a party going on in my head at all times. My own private VIP party. I got songs playing. I get, you know how they say mind over matter, man.
Yeah,
Um, long as I keep my own party going in my head, I feel I can get through anything, and I've been able to. That's how I was able to stay sane, man. I just kept a party going in my head. I kept a song going. I kept a dance going. Like, man, if I make it back to the States, I'm gonna hear this again, or you know what I mean. That's pretty much what I did literally. Just keep a
yeah,
party going in my head. Keep my spirits in a good enough level where I was never too high and never too low.
yeah,
Because
and,
you don't have much time to dwell on that stuff if you want to survive.
yeah. Now, I will ask. You've done some things recently with your, because we're about to wrap up. For those of you who are watching live and for those who are listening, you could probably see the timestamps. We're about to wrap up. I promise. If you've enjoyed this, send me a DM on Instagram or X, Twitter X, or send me an email at aaron@costlymedia.com and let me know you've enjoyed this. Maybe we'll invite Sergeant WarDog back and let him tell some more stories. I'm sure he's got plenty of stories that he would love to share. And
Oh
I would
yeah,
love I
man.
would love for you to just come on one day and just share every single war story in just painstaking detail, just so you can get it off your chest and let people kind of have a real idea of like what you actually went through. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I know we didn't get a chance to do that all, except for that, one or two missions. But um, if that's what you guys would like, please let us know, and potentially we can work that out. But tell us a little bit about the media enterprises or enterprising media entity that you are now, and what you've been up to. Like, what should we look forward to from you? What you like? If people are like, "Yo, I love this guy. He's got great energy." Like, where can they tap in with you?
All right. Well, for first off, to find me, it's pretty simple. You can find me at sergeantwardogtv.com, or I'm also on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and X at Sergeant War Dog TV. And the meaning behind Sergeant War Dog, all right, is I figured if they say that men are dogs because we chase women, then I am a war dog because I chase international conflict around the world. I chase war. I want to know who's fighting, where, why, what weapons are they using, what type of gear, ammo, which countries, what the terrain's like. I keep track of that's been my that's been me. So that's why I had to take the title and trademark the name of Sergeant War Dog. But yeah, ultimately, I'd honestly like to have my own outdoors TV show.
Yeah,
I'd like it to be somewhat of a hybrid. I want it to involve the military, hunting, and fishing, and taking veterans outdoors with me. Um, I do own a small amount of land here in Florida, so I'm in the process of creating a 501c3 where I want to have my own homeless war veterans camp called Camp Doghouse. I'd like to get 10 to 20 RVs, campers, and I'd like to be able to try to put 2 men in each, and I'd like to be able to have my own little community of off-grid veterans that don't mind living in the woods or in the camp setting again, and so they will have housing and shelter, And then I do want to be able to get transportation so I can get them to their VA doctor's appointments, get them to
Mm,
work, get them to visitation with their kids.
mm,
Um, and then I'm working on trying to find someone that can help me to feed them, to
yeah.
cater it so I could have hot meals every once in a while, because I am in a true off-grid location where you can only find me with an 8 or 10 digit grid coordinate.
Oh wow.
So
This is like
that's
off grid, off grid. Okay, yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you're going to need a lot of help and a lot of guys who are adept at that to kind of help these guys to really
right,
learn the ropes and how to really get along. And I like that. I think that's a great idea. I think obviously there's a lot of great companies out there who want to do good. A lot of small business CEOs that are doing well for themselves, but they also want to get back, right? Um,
right,
and I don't see any reason why we shouldn't support something like that, especially because it sounds like you actually have an idea. And, whether it needs to be fleshed out more, I don't know. We haven't heard that much, but I
mhm,
think it could work, right? Especially
right,
with the brotherhood, especially with the active duty like combat guys. Like there's a certain community and brotherhood that has to happen for these guys, or they kind of go a little nuts. And
right.
like give them that, give them that. So guys, I do want to say, as we're wrapping up, we actually, um, ooh, are we about to do this again? On November 19th, that is this Sunday, we're going to go live, do a live podcast as we always do. But this time we're going to do it with a guy named John Tinley. And that's going to be he's actually the founder of a Florida based, Miami based nonprofit. Um, they just did a Veterans Day get together. So I want him to come on and talk about that a little bit and just tell us exactly what he's doing. And I think as a community, as the Costly community here on YouTube, Instagram, podcast, wherever you are, we should find a way to get involved, whether that's donating or whatever, to make sure that we are taking care of those guys who are in our society who have given a lot, for whatever reason they joined, but they've given a lot and they might need a little bit of help. Can we find a way to do that? So I'm just going to challenge you guys, if you can. There was a link listed above. There's a couple different nonprofits. Tune in on Sunday. Learn about what we're talking about, and um, yeah, let's do that. We're gonna go ahead and sign off, brother. I know you said where people can find you, but just say it one more time for those who weren't paying attention.
I'm sorry. Say what again?
Could you just let people know one more time where to find you for those who weren't paying attention?
Oh, sure, sure, sure. You can find me at sergeantwardogtv.com. That's SGTWARDAWG TV.com, or Sergeant War Dog TV on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, TikTok, and X.
All right, all right. And for those of you who are watching the YouTube replay live, um, if there's a live comment section, make sure you tap into that because DJ Play Nice drops 1,000,000,006 links during the show, and they're all actually super important. So make sure you're tapping in with him. And big shout out to DJ Play Nice who has moderated this evening. Thank you so much, bro. Like real MVP. If I can do anything for you, let me know. And I'll go ahead and sign off. My throat is killing me. This is what I get for being sick and trying to do a show, but it was important, and I'm glad I did it. Oh gosh, excuse me.
You okay?
Oh my gosh, I'm struggling. Let me get this water. Woo. Okay, so guys, thank you so much for watching Costa Conversations. My name is Aaron. You can find me everywhere at Armed Atlas, armed_Atlas on Instagram, armed Atlas on YouTube, Twitter. Um, we've got more content coming on the Armed Atlas YouTube channel. I know it's been a little quiet, but guess what? It's coming. And thank you for everyone who watched live and those who generally do watch live. Love you guys. And until next time, keep it costly.